Good Friday afternoon to you. Hope your weekend's off to a great start. Thanks for joining us on Sports4CLE. Plenty of Browns and Chargers talk a little later in the show. We will be joined by Joe Reedy, Associated Press reporter from out in Los Angeles. He'll give us the lowdown on what's going on with the Los Angeles Chargers. We begin, though, by talking Browns out in Berea. Some news from practice today. Greg Newsome, we knew, was going to be out of this game. Now Chris Hubbard will be out of this game. Jadeveon Clowney, Myles Garrett, Troy Hill, Tack McKinley, David Njoku, Malcolm Smith, J.C. Tretter, Denzel Ward, and Jedrick Wills, all questionable. Thank you, Coach Belichick, for inserting and putting in your injury report. A number of questionables. Kevin Stefanski said there was a chance that Jedrick Wills could still play, but he didn't sound encouraging in the least. So it could be Blake Hance or James Hudson getting the start at left tackle for the Browns against the Chargers.
You know, all those guys have worked considerably hard transitioning to that spot, and especially for a rookie like James Hudson. You know, we've given him a lot of work, not only on the left side but the right side, and he's also had work, on the inside positions as well, and he's come along good. He got a little work last week against the Vikings, which I thought was really positive. Anytime a young guy can get on the field, it's invaluable, and I think he learned from that experience. And hopefully he can build on it as well. That's our plan for him. And of course, you look at a guy like Blake Hance, who's he's an interesting guy. He's smart. He's dependable. He can get in all the right positions. So he can play across the board, and not many players can do that.
Let's welcome in Doug Lesmerises, columnist for cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer. Doug, the Browns have more questions than a fifth grade math test for this injury report. How big of a deal is it if it's Blake Hance or potentially James Hudson as the left tackle?
Dave, back in the day when I was an athlete, they used to call me smart and dependable. You know why? It wasn't very good. So, as Scott Patsko pointed out on our Gotta Watch the Tape podcast on the Orange and Brown Talk feed, I know you guys out there, you all listen to it. He pointed out this week, I think the stats show that Joey Bosa, the Chargers' best pass rusher, mostly rushes from over the right tackle. So if the Chargers stay with, how Joey Bosa usually lines up, that's Joey Bosa, Jack Conklin. But why would you not go hunting for this matchup and have Joey Bosa flip sides and let him unleash against Hance or Hudson or some injured version of Jedrick Wills, which we know what that looks like. We've seen that the last several weeks. And again, we've talked about it. Jedrick Wills is fighting, man, but he is not close to himself. And so, this is a real issue. And the Chris Hubbard lingering injury has turned out to really be a problem for the Browns here, because he's clearly their sixth guy, right? You've got to have that swing guy, and he can play tackle or guard. He's the next guy up almost across the board, and he's not available, which amplifies everything going on with Jed Wills. So the fact that Joey Bosa is there, I don't know if the Chargers will go trying to exploit what's going on at left tackle, but it is an absolute real problem for the Browns, because it just feels like Jed Wills is not going to be able to be himself until he maybe gets some kind of extended rest, because he's trying, man, but every middle of the third quarter, he's got to come out, and the guys behind him, it's hard to trust him right now.
Yeah, and to your point, it sounds like we have a 75 Chevy at left tackle, always dependable. I mean, that's not exactly what you're looking for with Joey Bosa on the other side of the line. Another one, Myles Garrett, did not practice today, was limited yesterday, listed as questionable. He says he's going to play. Again, that's a big deal. Maybe not as big of a deal as your left tackle being out, but this defense is clearly a whole lot better with Myles Garrett lining up on the defensive line.
No, I mean, this is a great matchup for Myles Garrett. I think, Justin Herbert is a great quarterback, but I think you do have a chance to get after him a little bit. I think it feels like Myles will play, right? I mean, you're joking about the injury report. You got everybody on there who's like, well, I don't feel that great, or but I get it, but it feels like guys are going to play. Myles Garrett, I think, is going to play, and you can see it, right? I mean, he's the guy, as well as the Browns defense played last week, and it was a tremendous performance by the Browns defense. It all starts with him. We all know that. That's no surprise. And so Clowney's played really well, and Tack McKinley's a good third guy, but you take Myles out of the equation, and that's a problem. But it does feel like he'll play.
So the head coach of the Chargers, Brandon Staley, one of the young guys that has risen through the ranks quickly, was a defensive coordinator for the Rams a year ago, and Kevin Stefanski sees a lot of good things from this Chargers defense.
Yeah, they do a really nice job, Scott. Multiple personnel groupings, so multiple versions of nickel, multiple versions of their base. They can line up in different fronts. I think they do a really nice job in coverage. I've seen the coverage elements of this with Coach Staley and what Coach Fangio, what they did together in Chicago, and of course it's evolved. But they just do a really nice job. They play really sound coverage to match with their really physical front.
And, the one thing that is interesting, that defensive line is pretty good in passing situations. So the run game not quite as good as far as defense goes for those Chargers.
No, we've spent a lot of time on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast this week talking about that Chargers run defense, and is that an area? It's like, oh, okay, cool. Well, the Browns are good at that. So that might lean into that, right? That's how you attack them. Well, how do you deal with Joey Bosa as a pass rusher? It's like, don't pass. Just hand the ball to Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, and don't give Joey Bosa a chance to exploit those matchups. So that does feel real. I think that if you're trying to find the edge, but Dave, this is what we're going to do all year. It's like, find the edge for the Browns. It's like, I don't know, run game versus the run defense for the other team. I mean, listen, man, you could get anybody off the street to come on your show and say that. Oh, the Browns are good at running it, but that's all I got. So this does feel like we were debating on the podcast, could it be a huge Kareem Hunt game? Somebody suggested that. And it was like, no, we think it'll be a huge Nick Chubb game, because Nick Chubb had his first 100-yard game last week. And I was like, man, you really got to get Nick Chubb going. And then I looked it up, and he's second in the NFL in rushing. And I was like, what am I talking about? You got to get Nick Chubb going, because he's had like 85 yards every week, but he hasn't exploded. We haven't seen those 40-yard runs in the fourth quarter. I think his longest run this year is a 26-yarder. So that kind of thing, right? Wear him down, run all game, and then let Nick Chubb put a game away in the fourth quarter. That might be what's on tap here.
Yeah, I would agree. And to illustrate the point, Chargers run defense, 30th in the league. They are giving up 5.3 yards per carry. Browns lead the league with 177 yards running the ball per game. Now, you can be sure, and we will give you some proof of this, the Chargers are getting drilled defensively with how good this run game for the Browns is. Here's one of their linebackers, Drew Tranquill, talking about the Browns run game.
Two really good backs. I think an interesting stat Coach Staley brought up was, Chubb and Hunt, they have the most yards after contact in the fourth quarter out of any backs in the NFL. And I think that speaks to what Cleveland's trying to do philosophically in terms of wearing you down, and then be able to try to take over there in the fourth quarter. And so it's going to be imperative, Sunday afternoon to stop those guys and not allow them to get going.
Tag one discipline even more point of emphasis this week.
Yeah, our linebacker coach was given the tackling plan today, and he's like, man, it took me all night to find good tackles on these guys, because the first guys rarely ever making the play. And I think, that swarm to the ball, the second, third guy in, getting shot attempts at the ball is going to be very, very crucial for us to be successful against them.
And we've talked about this before, Doug. It's always it's always interesting to hear just how the other side is getting talked to about the Browns running game.
I feel like this solves my hairline issue, right? You just have the little bit out the top, and your whole face is this. I think Drew Tranquill is
onto something,
trying to help me out there.
Yeah.
I mean, they have a reputation now, Dave. They have a reputation. How great is that? The Browns have like the league knows. And he didn't have to get into film study to know that. Now, the coach starts talking about the stats and the fourth quarter stats and breaking tackles. But I do think I was reading some other stuff this week, prepping for some college games and NFL games. And this happens all the time, right? Guys have reps in the league, and then you get into the film when an opponent is getting ready for somebody. And the rep is either hype or it's real, right? And I was actually looking at Oklahoma getting ready to play Texas this weekend in college football. Oklahoma talking about Texas running back Bijan Robinson. And they're saying, like, man, we're digging it on film. All the hype on this guy is legit. And I think when defenses like this, as we're seeing with the Chargers, when you dig in on Chubb and Hunt, and it's like, oh man, yeah, now you're watching film in the fourth quarter of how they're putting games away and they're breaking tackles and they don't make anything easy on the defense and they never go down on the first hit. I think that's like a cool thing for the Browns, that they have I think the league views them in a way, and then when you dig in on that offensive line, on Kevin Stefanski's play calling and what those two backs do to complement each other, everything about what you think shows up on the film, and it's something that defenses really know is a real problem heading into any game.
Doug Lesmerises, columnist for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. And I'm going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we'll hear from Keyshawn Johnson on Baker Mayfield. Won't want to miss that one. Plus, first quarter of the season MVPs, biggest surprises, areas that need improvement. Straight ahead on Sports4CLE. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions, lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
Sports4CLE continues. We listen in to Keyshawn Johnson from ESPN talking about the Browns taking Baker Mayfield #1 overall.
The only team that probably would have taken Baker Mayfield #1 overall, and I'm not talking about based on where Lamar and Josh Allen and Sam Darnold's playing today. We're talking about when the draft came out.
At the time, yes.
At the time. Cleveland would have been the only team that would have taken him #1 overall. And that was a John Dorsey, shut my door. I'm not listening to anybody tell me as the general manager who the hell to take. I'm giving you facts, Han. Reality and facts.
I'm with you. No, I was all over. I covered that draft. I was all over that draft, and that's exactly right. John Dorsey was the, Baker Mayfield no matter what in that draft, in a quarterback draft that was compelling. But you're right. In hindsight, you can say easily, Lamar Jackson, MVP, Josh Allen, a future MVP. But at the time, we forget where Josh Allen was coming from. Wyoming, who was watching them play? You had no idea what he was going to be. And there were questions about Lamar Jackson. Could he be a pocket passer? Could he be a quarterback in the NFL? Some people didn't believe it.
There were people on that staff that I know personally that told me at a workout that I was at of a quarterback that they wouldn't touch Baker Mayfield, but it's not their decision. That Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and Sam Darnold was graded 1, 2, 3 on his board. He turned it in, and they decided to go with Baker Mayfield.
Nah, Doug, I'm not buying that. Lamar Jackson was never in the consideration to be #1 overall for the Browns. I'm not buying any of that. That's revisionist history. If you want to tell me Josh Allen, maybe, but there was concerns about his accuracy. It wasn't that he played at Wyoming, it was his accuracy. And they didn't like what they heard from Sam Darnold.
Yeah, so I'm assuming the workout that Keyshawn was at was a Sam Darnold workout, right? USC. So he's probably like that. That was the whole conversation.
Right.
And like Baker Mayfield is actually like not a John Dorsey quarterback, right? I think a lot of people thought that, if like John Dorsey was going to take a guy, maybe it was going to be Josh Allen, right? That Baker is almost sort of like the more analytical lean of a quarterback there. And I thought there was reporting at the time that there was a split. Clearly, I don't think we know Baker wasn't a slam dunk #1 around the league. But I think reporting has shown that there were other teams that would have taken in number one. The thing that I think is the key aspect of all that is I think the Browns were in a position where it took them so long to get in the position to control their quarterback destiny. They couldn't miss. And they had to take a guy with upside at number one, of course, but I also think like you couldn't risk a whiff.
Right.
And I think there was just more uncertainty around Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen in that regard, that they might have, I think they have more physical upside. They're more dynamic. And if it hits, you see what it is. And the thing is, they both hit. So it's like, oh, but they both hit. Not every quarterback like them has hit over time. I think I understood the Browns going with what I think was a safer choice, because Baker is kind of more about accuracy and moving the ball and efficiency. He's not going to make plays like Lamar and Josh make. But I understood why that part of it made sense too. But Baker clearly has upside as well. And again, the debate really was Baker versus Darnold. And, you know, the Jets ruined Sam Darnold, and he's rushed for 5 touchdowns this year, and he's more athletic than Baker too. But I don't know. I mean, is anyone sitting here saying like, why did the Browns take Sam Darnold? And
no.
You know, nobody just, it wasn't really a huge, I mean, Lamar just was not in that conversation. Incorrectly, he should have been.
Sure.
But I don't know that he was in that conversation for anybody. And then Josh Allen, to me, felt like a reach. I think a lot of people felt like a reach for a franchise that really couldn't afford to reach.
Yeah,
Right?
and the other thing is still let it play out. It's, you know, you're 3 or 4 years in, 4 years in now. So let's see. You know, finally Baker Mayfield has the same system and a guy that understands what he does well. So let's see. All right, here's some interesting dynamics between the first 2 games of this season for Baker Mayfield and the last 2. So this is according to Jake Trotter, ESPN Stats Info. Off-target rate, first 2 games, 8%, second best in the NFL. Last 2, with the shoulder injury, 32%. That ranks last in the league. And again, you can say it doesn't matter, that that hurts when you throw, and even if it's your non-throwing shoulder and you've got that type of injury.
Yeah, I think clearly it is affecting him one way or the other. I don't know how you could argue against it. The other thing that coincides with that is Jarvis Landry getting hurt. And I think that is something I think we have to note as well. That is the most reliable guy. That is the guy that, you know, catches everything, that the intermediate stuff that Baker's really good at. And you take him out of the equation and you introduce Odell, and I still think that's a connection that will work, but they're more down the field throws. He's a different type of receiver. And they have not really filled in for Jarvis in a way that has been impactful, right? So I think those 2 things together, I think it's not just the shoulder. I think the Jarvis situation is certainly part of it. But again, on Gotta Watch the Tape, Scott Patsko for us ran down everything. I mean, like even through 3 games, the stats were good. And then the game 4 stats were so bad, it lowers Baker and everything across the board. So, you know, is he going to be magically healed against the Chargers? No. But I also think it's reasonable to think like that was kind of the bottom. I don't think this is a trend. I think that was like an example of the worst it can go. And I think we'll get closer to sort of like normal Baker Mayfield against the Chargers on Sunday. But again, normal within the context of his non-throwing shoulder hurts.
Yeah, and you know, you can't get around that. All right, before we go to break, let me get your first quarter of the season MVP and also biggest surprise. Give me those 2.
First quarter of the season MVP probably is Myles. I do think Kareem Hunt is in the running for that, with the versatility that he has brought to the offense and the way Kevin Stefanski has used him so far. I think the defense is like coming along. I think you can see the Clowney impact. I think you can see the John Johnson III impact. But I think clearly it's Myles is what's making everything go on this defense. But on the offensive side of the ball, I think it would be Kareem so far.
And biggest surprise?
I mean, I didn't know that you could necessarily say, hey, JOK, man, he should have been a first-round pick. What a steal in the second round. He's going to be awesome. I mean, it just felt too easy, right? This is what happens to other teams. These are the kind of things when it's, oh, a guy fell in the Ravens' lap, or a guy fell in the Steelers' lap in the draft, and I can't believe they got that guy. And he's the perfect guy for them. And how is he there? And he's immediately impactful. And then everything that anybody thought about Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is true and more. He is the dynamic, modern NFL linebacker. He is exactly what this defense needed. He makes plays in space. He is smart. He is capable. And so it might be weird to label that a surprise, but I'm almost surprised that the thing that seems so obvious wound up being obvious. He should have been a first-round pick. It was a steal in the second round, and this guy is a difference maker. So I will be surprised by that because I always think it can't be that easy, but it kind of was.
Well, you know what? The front office was prepared for it, and points to Andrew Berry for seeing what was happening, moving up and going and getting him. Doug Lesmerises, columnist for the Plain Dealer in cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, Chargers offensive coordinator Joe Lombardi will talk about Myles Garrett. We'll also take a look at which team is most analytically inclined. It's according to a survey of analytics staffers. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns Chargers. So Chargers offense coordinator Joe Lombardi talked about what he has seen from Myles Garrett when he looks and gets ready to face the Browns defense.
He's I don't know if there's a better defensive end pass rusher in the NFL. I mean, he is impressive, and it's going to be a challenge, and he's going to win some battles, and that's just something that you have to know going into it, and certainly be smart about the plays you're calling, knowing that he's a guy that can ruin your day by himself very quickly. So I think it's he's obviously the guy, and Clowney too, and Tack is playing really well. I've got some experience playing against him in Atlanta, and man, he's really popping off the film as you watch the Browns. And so it's seems like every week we're in a situation. Every team's got good rushers, but these guys are really top class.
And Doug Lesmerises, how long has it been since a defense front of the Browns is somebody that another team is worried about and trying to figure out how to stop?
Oh, yeah, and I mean, this is what we have to get used to now, right? I mean, it really last week was really eye-opening. Like, I'm not surprised by it, but that when you see all the pieces come together, and it starts with that front four, and it starts with them getting four-man pressure and not having to blitz a ton to affect the quarterback, and then having guys in coverage that you believe in. But again, on our Gotta Watch the Tape podcast on Thursday, Ellis Williams was just talking about all the different defensive alignments the front four uses. When Clowney's inside, or Malik Jackson is very versatile and allows them to do a lot of different things because he's a tackle that can slide outside very easily. And so they're able to keep offensive lines off balance and then use their great skill and talent without having to commit extra guys to it. And it just changes everything. And so Myles is the guy that it starts with, but the fact that it's not only one guy, because we're used to Myles being good. So that kind of individual Myles praise is not new, but that it's tied into something more collective up front is so incredibly impactful, and it feels like it's not a fluke.
So here is an analytics survey by ESPN.com, and this is guys that work in analytics offices, analytics staffers throughout the NFL. Which team most analytically advanced? Browns 1, Ravens 2. Which team produces the highest level of analytics work? Browns 1, Ravens 2. Which team most incorporates analytics into its decision making? Browns 1, Ravens number 2. So folks that are trying to make the Browns the only analytically driven team, it's not true. It's modeled after the Ravens. That's a pretty good franchise to emulate to be.
Congratulations to the Browns. Was that headline on that story, "Look at these nerds"? Or was it like, hey, look at smart teams doing smart things to be good? I mean, this is who they wanted to be. They took a circuitous route to get here. Andrew Berry, to his credit, is the man with Paul DePodesta who has been able to merge all of this. But like, this is the deal, right? This is smart teams looking for an edge, and the Browns are leading the way. And like, even I think they said in a ranking like this, I read part of that story, they said, frankly, the Browns probably should have been ranked higher last year, but kind of people were slow to come around on what they were doing. Like, this is the deal. This is the path that they committed to with Sashi Brown. They got away from with John Dorsey. And then when they made that move, the Haslams recommitted to it with Andrew Berry. And it's Andrew Berry's style of it that he is almost uniquely qualified to merge analytics and football guy knowledge and scouting acumen and bring all of that together. But they are going to stay at the front of this. And other teams are going to catch up. If they're smart, they will. But they're going to stay at the front of this. And, like, how do you think this happened? Like, it's part of why they're good, right? Everyone's like, oh, Demetric Felton is like a great pick. It's like, well, how do you think they made? He didn't pull Demetric Felton's name out of a hat. Donovan Peoples-Jones, where did that? Well, how do you think they did the thing? How do they think they knew Jeremiah? I mean, it's all this stuff. So we're seeing the results. That's the whole thing about this Browns thing that I almost appreciate the most. It wasn't perfect, but there was always a plan, right? That what's happening right now, so much of this is planned, and it's the fruition of a smart plan. So awesome. And again, rankings, whatever, being ranked as an analyst, the proof's in the pudding, man. They got good players. They got a good team. They have good strategies. Kevin Stefanski, when he goes for stuff on fourth down, when he goes every time the other team gets a penalty on an extra point, now he goes for 2 because it's half the yardage. Like, it's just all this stuff. And it's being put to football use in a way that every edge matters, man. And you don't know when analytics might win the Browns a game, but I bet you I guarantee you there are times when it's like, well, that thing that just happened to help win the Browns a game, that was analytics driven, whether it was the acquisition of the player, the way the roster was built, or the decisions within a game. And so credit to them and credit to somebody for acknowledging it.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. The plan, and if you paid attention, you could kind of see the plan being laid out and how it was followed, and it's been executed extremely well. Well, the Chargers offense creates a unique problem for the Browns. Kevin Stefanski talked about it, what he sees from the Chargers when they had the football.
Yeah, I think a lot of teams are mixed tempo throughout a series. You know, it's not just it's full speed or up tempo for a series. Sometimes you get in and out of it. I think they've done a nice job of that. So defensively, we have to get aligned very quickly. You'll see them get aligned very quickly. They're snapping the ball, so we have to do the same and then use our rules to our advantage.
And again, they're going to up tempo, change tempo, slow things down. So the Browns have to be on the same page defensively, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out with the Chargers offense versus the Browns defense.
So Anthony Walker back, right? Anthony Walker's back. Anthony Walker, big game to get him back, right? Let's get everybody, hey, are we ready for this? Are we settled? Is our leader making sure that everybody's in the right spot and knows what the defensive call is? This is a really good time to have Anthony Walker back. As you said, there's a lot of guys on that injury list. They're going to miss Greg Newsome. They're going to miss Chris Hubbard if Jed Wills can't go. So they're not the healthiest team in the world right now, but let's make sure we don't take the return of Anthony Walker for granted, especially in a game like this, because I think if there was a situation where Anthony Walker wasn't playing and you could see the tempo changes messing with the Browns a little bit, we'd be going, oh man, they really missed Anthony Walker today. So if they don't get screwed up by any of that stuff, let's make sure we acknowledge, man, it was nice to have Anthony Walker out there.
Important to note, he was the leading tackler in week 1 when he played, and then has missed the last couple of weeks with that injury. All right. Doug Lesmerises and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, a voicemail of truth and reason about Coach Kevin Stefanski. We'll also get Doug's thoughts on how the Browns-Chargers game plays out. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
We continue talking Browns with Doug Lesmerises. So Colin Cowherd from FS1's The Herd talking on if Baker Mayfield is the guy.
Now, with Baker Mayfield, I think the lean is to pay him a bunch of money. In Los Angeles, the standards are greater. Everybody wins here. You got to be competitive. We don't rest on our laurels. Jared Goff got to a Super Bowl. They bailed on him. In Los Angeles, Baker wouldn't get re-signed. Josh Allen would. Herbert would. But it's Los Angeles. But this is Cleveland. And I do think Baker is a winning quarterback now, and it's going to be hard to move off him. But I will say this. The next 8 weeks are going to determine a lot. Because not only does Cleveland play good teams, but in the next 8 weeks, they face Justin Herbert, Kyler Murray, Joe Burrow, Mac Jones, Lamar Jackson twice. What does that mean? Side by side with young quarterbacks. And Andrew Berry, the general manager, is going to be upstairs looking at Kyler's possessions. And now it's Baker's turns. And Justin Herbert's possessions. And now it's Baker's turn. And it's Lamar. And if Baker doesn't stack up, the eyes don't lie. And he's not winning games, he'll be in trouble.
Well, Doug, the bottom line isn't how he stacks up against other quarterbacks. They don't sit there and game plan to see who can throw for the most yards and touchdowns. They game plan to win games. Before Baker Mayfield was the quarterback, the Browns were 232-1. That's the Hugh Jackson era without Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield's 26-23 as a starting quarterback. I'd say he's doing pretty well so far.
Baker Mayfield. He's not an earthquake quarterback. LA, you got earthquakes. He's not an earthquake quarterback. You got the beach here. You got the sand. You got the boardwalk. I don't think Baker Mayfield. We have cannabis for sale on the Santa Monica boardwalk. I don't think Baker Mayfield is a quarterback for that kind of environment. He wouldn't make it in LA. He wouldn't make it in LA. He's a Cleveland quarterback. I know you got a 3-hour show and you're there by yourself. The stuff that comes out of that guy's mouth is so inane sometimes. Wayne Gretzky played here. Los Angeles Kings, the hockey team. Cleveland doesn't have hockey. Baker's not a hockey town quarterback. What does it even? It's insanity. I know he's a very talented broadcaster. Is why he's reached the peak of what he says. Sometimes he is filling air with absolute nonsense. There's traffic here. I don't think Baker Mayfield's a traffic quarterback. In Cleveland, you can drive around. You get to one place to another in 20 minutes. I don't think he's a quarterback who could sit in traffic for 90 minutes to go 2 miles. What does it mean he's not an LA quarterback? I don't even know what that means. Does he have to play well? Yes, he has to play well. Are there other good quarterbacks? Yes, there are other good quarterbacks. His shoulder hurt and he had a bad game against Minnesota. I don't know. I mean, like, there's smog here. I don't know if Baker Mayfield, I don't know if he can play in smog. He could be a smog quarterback. Cleveland has better airflow. You can play there. It's on the lake.
He's won 24. He's won 24 more games than they did before he came here already. Again, yes, Andrew Berry's going to evaluate him, but he's going to evaluate him on, is he leading the team to wins? Is he doing what Kevin Stefanski and the offensive staff need him to win games? That's how he's going to be evaluated. That's how he should be evaluated. Doesn't matter if he throws for 6 gazillion yards and 21 touchdowns. Doesn't matter. All right, enough of that. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one is regarding Kevin Stefanski, Browns head coach.
Hi, I'm born and raised in Cleveland. I'm 60 years old. Saw my first football game in 1970. The Giants had Parcells, the Dolphins had Shula, Pats got Belichick. How long is it going to take for the Browns to give our coach a 7-year, $42 million contract and just lock him up and get us a base foundation that we can build on? How long is it going to take, you think? Thanks.
Well, we appreciate Kevin's agent calling into the show, but I mean, the answer is the Browns will be in a rush to sign Kevin Stefanski if this continues down this trend. It's a year and a half in, and it's been a really good year and a half, and you like everything you see. So I think it's trending that way without question.
No, I think he's their Mike Tomlin. I think he's their John Harbaugh. I don't even know. I'm reaching for examples. How often does it even happen in the NFL where a successful head coach leaves and goes somewhere else, right? He's good right now. We think he'll continue to be good. And if he continues to be good, then he'll stay with the Browns because, what would be better, right? Unless, Kevin Stefanski, is he an LA coach? He has gray in his beard. He can't have gray in your beard in LA. So I think he's their Mike Tomlin. It's right here. You can see what Mike Tomlin has been for the Steelers, and doesn't mean they made the playoffs every year, and it doesn't mean it was perfect every year, but they set a standard. They had a culture. It was highly competitive. They got a quarterback in there they could rely on for a long time, and we saw what that looked like, what that stability looked like. And I'm just assuming, again, good luck to Kevin Stefanski. Get every dollar you can. I don't really care how long his contract is or how much he's making, because I just think he's going to be here, because I think he likes it here and the Browns like him. And I do think he is a decade plus, maybe 2 decades. It's crazy to say in year 2, but it feels like that's what it is. I don't know that anybody would disagree with that.
And the other thing that's important to note, he came in with Andrew Berry, so you have the marriage of the general manager and the head coach, and that always is something that you want. All right, before I let you go, how do you see this one playing out? How do you see the Browns-Chargers game playing out Sunday, 4 o'clock in Los Angeles?
So I do think the Rashawn Slater-Myles Garrett matchup is potentially really tough. Rashawn Slater is an excellent left tackle. Storm Norton, I think, is the guy on the right side. He's graded much lower. He's a Toledo guy. I'm curious if the Browns can get a matchup. Rashawn Slater's been a great rookie left tackle, so the Browns have to get pressure at places other than over left tackle. To me, the Chargers and the Browns are very similar, but the Browns are a year older. The Browns head coach is a second-year guy. The Chargers head coach is a first-year guy. Baker's a fourth-year quarterback. Herbert's a second-year quarterback. They're on a similar path, but the Browns are a year further along. The Chargers have had great wins over the Chiefs and Raiders this year. They're both 3-1, but I don't know that the Chargers are just going to have that's it, smooth sailing 14-3, right? They've got a couple tough games coming up. To me, this is a game where the Browns last year's experience of winning should get them ready to go win a game like this. So I think it's close. I picked the Browns 23-20, but I think they know how to win. They know exactly what their plan to win is on both sides of the ball. Baker doesn't have to be awesome. He has to be better than last week. Herbert can outplay him, but I think the Browns have a plan. It's that run game. It's more of the defense we saw last week, and I think they win a close one because the Browns know how to do this now, and this would be a big win for the franchise. Maybe the biggest win, maybe the best win since the Ravens in week 4 of 2019. The Titans win was really good last year, but this would be as good of a win in the regular season, I think, as we've seen the Browns have in a long time.
Yeah, I think it's also going to be a close game, and I would tend to agree with you. I think Chargers coming off a short week. Remember, they played Monday night. I think the Browns find a way to win this one, potentially even late. I think it's a close game late, and I think the Browns win a very close game. Doug Lesmerises, columnist from cleveland.com, as well as the Plain Dealer. Doug, as always, man, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
Glad to be on a show here in Cleveland. I couldn't make it in LA. I'm not an LA guy. I can't live near the beach. Thanks for having me, Dave.
All right, Doug Lesmerises, columnist from cleveland.com, as well as the Plain Dealer. Well, Myles Garrett did not practice today, but Garrett says he will be good to go, listed as questionable. He says he's playing against the Chargers.
Nagging pains, and decided to let me heal up and get ready for Sunday.
I mean, are you confident you're going to play on Sunday?
Yeah, confident I'm going to play. Just need to get ready, get right. I mean, in defense, confidence kind of where it was 2 weeks ago. We know we still got something to prove. We got something to prove every week. There'll always be someone who doesn't believe in what we're doing or our performance for the week prior. So we just got to keep on putting it on tape.
How do you size up Herbert?
Great quarterback. I mean, the guy's proven a lot this year. And, he's shown that he needs his respect. And I feel like he's progressed a long way, just like Slater. They're wiser than the years that they've been in the league, and they've studied the game a lot. And he's able to make throws on time, and we gotta keep him off his rhythm. He's able to make throws because they're there, and we gotta start taking away throws so the rush can get there.
Myles Garrett talking about Justin Herbert and the Los Angeles Chargers. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. On the other side of the break, we shift our focus, and we will talk Los Angeles Chargers. Joe Reedy, Associated Press reporter from Los Angeles, joins us after this timeout. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. Sports4CLE continues. We continue talking Browns, Chargers. Browns getting ready to head west out to Los Angeles to face the Chargers. A 4 o'clock kickoff out on the West Coast. Let's welcome in Joe Reedy from the Associated Press out in Los Angeles. Joe, appreciate the time. Brandon Staley, a guy that 5 years ago, defensive coordinator at John Carroll, Division III here in Cleveland, has kind of risen up. Was Bears linebackers coach for a couple of years, Broncos linebacker coach, defensive coordinator for the Rams, and now a pretty successful head coach through the first 4 games. What has the difference been with the Chargers under Brandon Staley?
I think the fact that he's gotten everybody to buy into his system and communicate, I think that is a quality among young head coaches. We've seen that with Sean McVay. We've seen that with others, but especially with Staley being from that Sean McVay tree. I think that's the biggest quality. Really, from the time that he stepped in and was named the head coach of the Chargers, he said shortly after calling his wife, the first call that he made was to quarterback Justin Herbert. And then the day that he had his press conference with us for the first time, he met Derwin James, the all-pro safety here with the Chargers. So getting those two to buy on immediately. And I think it's philosophy. The one thing about Brandon, and I'm sure some Cleveland writers who've known him from when he went to Perry High School and grew up in Perry, says he's from a family of teachers, and his approach is he explains the philosophy of the play and how everybody can buy in, and how like Joey Bosa knows now what the other 10 players on the defense are supposed to do and their responsibilities. It's not just you're the pass rusher, go and do this. It's here is why we are doing this, and then explain the philosophy, and then going into the X's and O's. And really, the confidence that he's gotten and the aggressiveness in buying into is really gotten off to a 3-1 start against what at the beginning of the season was looked at to be a challenging first 6 games before the bye week.
The other thing is that young quarterback, Justin Herbert, he looks like he's flourishing under Staley, who was a defensive coach. How has that gone, and what do you think the reasons for that are?
I think that it's Joe Lombardi, who's the offensive coordinator here with the Chargers. A lot of years with Drew Brees in New Orleans in that system, but they've also brought in a couple former 49ers assistants out of that Kyle Shanahan running game. So it's been a marriage of both systems that I think has worked very well. Justin is doing a lot more of the short passing game, maybe compared to last year, where it was more intermediate to long throws. Mike Williams has really thrived under this system with the amount of balls caught within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, which really he was a deep threat the past couple years. Keenan Allen's still getting his catches. The encouraging thing for Monday night is I think many people thought when Hunter Henry left that where were they going to get production out of the tight end, and they had 3 different tight ends catch passes, including 2 for touchdowns. So that's thrived too. Austin Eckler, the running back, starting to get more carries out of the backfield, second career 100-yard game this past Monday, but also he's kind of like Kareem Hunt, where he can catch the ball out of the backfield and do his most effective past the line of scrimmage and breaking tackles that way. So I think Eckler's really thrived as well. 4 new starters on the offensive line too has really helped out Herbert.
How good has he looked? How good has Justin Herbert looked? There are people that are saying he should be in the MVP discussion at this point through 4 weeks.
He's looked very well. A pair of fourth quarter comebacks, which was set up by turnovers on the defensive end, which was something we didn't see last year. I think when you look at the past 2 years, this team blew a lot of double-digit leads and really couldn't find a counterpunch. Now they are. He's not making that many mistakes, especially the past 2 games. There were a couple critical red zone turnovers against Washington and Dallas, really impacted them in the Dallas game. But he's limited turnovers, really with the short passing game. They've gotten in a nice groove that way. And he's 3 for 3 on fourth down throws. I think that he has the utmost trust in his head coach at the moment and confidence from him, and that has really paid off for the entire offensive system.
You mentioned the line with 4 new starters. How has that looked? And if there is a concern with this offensive group, what is it?
I think the offensive line they played very well against Washington. Rashawn Slater, 13th overall pick in this past draft, played very well, has excelled. He's playing at probably all rookie team level. I was a little surprised. Pro Football Focus named its first quarter offensive line. 2 Browns are on there. I thought that maybe Herbert would get Slater would get a little bit of a consideration that way, especially with how he's played. But, the rest of the offensive line, Corey Linsley, former Ohio State guy who was with Green Bay, has really helped meld this defense. Really, I think that there's still 2 question marks on the offensive line. Left guard Matt Filer did not play well against Oakland, gave up a pair of sacks and also 5 quarterback pressures. Right tackle has also been an issue too. Brian Bulaga, who started at the beginning of the year on injured reserve due to a back issue, and he's not back yet. And Storm Norton, who used to play in the XFL and is kind of a fill-in right tackle, has struggled there at times.
You touched a little bit on Eckler. How important is he to what the Chargers want to do offensively?
He's really important because I think everybody tries to look at the passing game and think that, if you have a successful passing game, that you should pass on every down. Obviously, in Cleveland, with Chubb and Hunt, the running game has worked particularly well, and I think that really in this Vegas game, they were able to get balance with the run game and pass game. And Staley's wanted to be more in that, 60-40 maybe pass, but marry it up better, because I think as everybody sees throughout the league that unless you're Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes, if you throw it 40 or more times in a game, that's not a good stat. Usually 40 equals death for a team's chances of winning if you get to that number of pass attempts. So I think they're trying to keep it down. They had that in the first 2 games, have split at it, but Eckler, very important, good check down on screens when they need to, but also, as Austin showed in the Vegas game, he can break tackles. He's a small back, but can break tackles. An interesting thing in this game too, 3 out of the top 8 backs in terms of yards after contact will be on display Sunday. Obviously, Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, but Austin Eckler only has 1 yard fewer in terms of yards after contact compared to Kareem Hunt.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty likely comparison, a good comparison. Eckler and Hunt are very similar. Joe Reedy from the Associated Press out in Los Angeles. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, Joe and I are going to flip sides of the ball. We'll talk Chargers defense, a little bit of Browns offense. Sports for CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
We continue talking Browns, Chargers, getting the Los Angeles perspective with Joe Reedy from the Associated Press in Los Angeles. Joe, Brandon Staley was a defensive guy, really good defensive coordinator last year under McVay with the Rams, best defense in the NFL. How has the Chargers defense changed this year with him as the head coach?
They're a very multiple attack now. I think under Gus Bradley in the past, there were a couple schemes that you knew Gus was going to run and he wasn't going to deviate from. There's a lot of motion with this scheme now to where offenses have to quickly adjust if they can. I think the secondary also playing maybe a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage at times, maybe compared to the past. And he's using the players in a lot of different ways and roles too. But I also think the biggest thing with this defense too is that Derwin James is back and playing at a level he did his rookie year in 2018 after playing in only 5 games the past 2 years and missing all of last season due to a knee injury.
How good has James been? You've touched on him a couple of times. How important is he to what this Chargers defense wants to be?
I think many people who don't know the Chargers maybe look at the defense and think Joey Bosa is the leader of it. Derwin James is the leader of it. He calls the plays in the huddle. He's kind of their emotional force too, as far as, keeping things solid and on the level with what you can do with Derwin. I saw it when he was at Florida State. Not only is he a talented deep safety, but he can line up as linebacker and drop into coverage that way and take on tight ends or receivers or running backs. But also at times he can line up as a rush end too and attack the quarterback. So really the versatility with him and the physical skills he has, and also his football acumen, is a kind of a deadly trio.
It sounds like Staley's using him a lot like he used John Johnson III, who signed with the Browns out in Los Angeles. Is that accurate to say, you think?
Yeah, using him kind of like John Johnson, and also how he used Jalen Ramsey, the talented Rams quarterback. And there is a lot of similarities with Johnson and James, but also with Ramsey and James. They both played together at Florida State, and I think Derwin really got a jump on knowing Brandon and his schemes and his philosophies from talking to his close friend Jalen Ramsey during the offseason.
You mentioned Joey Bosa. How has he played? How important is he to what the Chargers are doing defensively as well?
2.5 sacks on the year so far, but the one thing that jumps out is everybody was wondering when Melvin Ingram did not re-sign here in free agency, eventually signed with Pittsburgh, by double and triple teaming Joey Bosa, would he still be able to get the sacks? And he's gotten 2.5 so far. Had a sack and a strip fumble against Vegas that the Raiders were eventually supposed to recover. That eventually did recover, but he's still playing at an all-pro level, and as the now the second highest paid defensive player in the league. He kind of had the highest paid moniker there for 14 months until T.J. Watt in Pittsburgh had it, but also the rest of the defensive line has really stepped up. Linval Joseph, Jerry Tillery starting to play well. The biggest difference with Joey, too, is he's more of a linebacker and rush player in this defense. He hasn't really played stand-up a lot during his career, going back to Ohio State and now his first couple years with the Chargers. So he's still adjusting to that, drops back in coverage at times, even though it is few and far between. But still, when it's going to be an obvious pass rush situation, he's going to be there.
The numbers say that the Chargers have struggled stopping the run. Is that true, and how big of a concern is that against Cleveland, who's been running the football very well?
First 3 games, they really struggled stopping the run. That Dallas game, with the double attack that they had, Ezekiel Elliott got 80 yards, Pollard got over 100, which, if you look at that, there's many similarities to what Cleveland could do. I think it's a giant concern, because also Cleveland's offensive line may be one of the more physical ones that the Chargers take on this year. And then on the other side of the ball too, Cleveland's defense and that defensive line is going to be a very good indicator for how improved this Chargers offensive line is.
Before I let you go, how do you see this one playing out? What do you think some keys are, and high scoring, low scoring, and how do you think this one gets decided?
Well, I think the Browns-Minnesota game last week, everybody thought that it was going to be high scoring, and it turned into a bit of a 14-7 slugfest. I think this is maybe more around 24-20, 23-20. It could go either way. Right now, I would think with a short week that Cleveland would be favored, especially with the running game. I do think it comes down to special teams. Chase McLaughlin, former Charger, who's now the Browns kicker, has kicked very well. Chargers were the worst special teams unit in the league last year. They have improved, but still in the return and coverage games, there are some lapses from time to time. So I think special teams is going to be key, and it's always the turnover battle too. But I think time of possession is also going to be a huge key in this game too. If a team can get to 33, 34 minutes, they're going to have a huge role in this game. Could also be quick too with the way both teams have been running the ball lately.
Joe Reedy from the Associated Press in Los Angeles. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Joe.
Thank you.
All right, Joe Reedy from the Associated Press talking Chargers from out in Los Angeles. That'll do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here Monday at 4 o'clock. We'll talk plenty about the Browns-Chargers game, dissect it, take a look at it, and see exactly what went right and what went wrong. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you back here Monday at 4 on Sports for CLE.